Thank you.
She'll be processing it. That's where it is. This is.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, Professor.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Okay.
Yeah. That'll be great.
Maybe I use my laptop. Is it okay? Because I made some slide updates.
Sure, no, I could tell. But you know, I can send you my
Okay.
I'm just too busy, you know, things to do.
Would you like to use your laptop?
Yeah, just
Okay.
make the slide updates. Yeah.
So,
Amazement.
yeah.
So there's also
You
Zoom
are the
here.
department chair.
Yeah.
No, no,
Okay.
I'm not. Okay, that was a long, that was.
So what we will do
Uh-huh.
is,
Yeah, okay, I will chat with you more and. Yeah, yeah.
leave it here. And
Yeah.
Professor could use.
Yeah.
Exactly. What we will do is share your slides. I share your.
Oh, so
Yeah,
like
we will
transfer
record.
slides or
Yeah.
okay.
So since you can enter the Zoom. Oh,
Enter
you
the
might
Zoom.
not. Yeah, this is not registered. Professor, is it okay for us to keep the Zoom here so that you?
Sure, sure. So I transfer the file.
Yeah.
to this. Yeah, I think I have a flash
Oh.
drive.
Okay.
Uh,
Or if you send it to my mail,
your mail. Okay,
I
that's
can
also
just
fine.
download it.
You see me or something?
I have one.
Oh, perfect. yeah.
Okay.
That might be easier.
There was an obituary that was written by his colleague, in the department, I can find that and send it to you. Oh, that would be great. I was looking for something, maybe this.
Yeah, yeah.
recent time. No, yeah, I'll dig that up and send it to you. Yeah, I visit, in Rachel and I actually, visited his house and work. Oh, really? His house. No, I've never been there. Yeah, for one of them, I was. So you know it better than I do. I totally admire his passion. Yeah. Service and to the whole community. Yeah. Smarter than most of us, I think. Yeah, I busy because he was so dedicated to homes. It's very devoted. So you have a published paper? Yeah, code. Code edit.
Oh, it's in this computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how we got the. Yeah. Maybe I can send this to. Yeah, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, bye. Yeah, I'll be back.
Yeah, I think so, but. Let me,
Do you have a restroom here?
oh, yeah, yes, yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Get all the hardware from.
Sorry. Yeah, so I don't know, if everyone is about to enter it, could you try to join? Sure, sure.
Yeah. Over here, so. But. Yeah.
Here, Jen.
Jan.
Yeah. I think you did the same one. Let's see. You did something exactly the same way. Let's see, you know, that would be one.
No, I didn't, you mean, not a paper, but a what?
An event, like a 20. Okay.
Oh, online?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So can you hear it? I can hear it. Okay, perfect.
Hello, 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 hello.
So that's, yeah, that's great. I will wait.
read all the words.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We will be starting this conference. Okay. So, hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here again. We are so happy to continue with this transportation research webinar, and we are so happy to have Professor Zhu with us today. Well, I will actually let Professor Jin introduce him because we are so grateful to him who invited Professor Zhu to be here today with us. So thank you very much, and please.
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence, and yeah, thank you, Vicky, for helping to organize this, and definitely thank Professor Zhou for coming down here from Berkeley, and it's my great honor to this Professor Zhou. He's a very accomplished associate professor in the Department of Civil Materials and Environmental at the University of Illinois, Chicago. And he's also now a visiting associate professor at UC Berkeley Department of Civil and Environmental. And his research interests focus on technology innovation for human and freight mobility. And in his research, I'm amazed by the breadth of his research, and his research definitely has been attracted a lot of funding from broad range of agencies, including World Bank, NSF, NASA, DOT, DOE. I just need one of them among the list, and the American Public Transportation Association. And at the same time, he plays a vital role to the whole transportation research community by serving on numerous journal editorial boards, and also serve on the TRD, Freight Transportation Planning and Logistics Committee. So I'm wondering, you might, our professor still reach.
Yes.
Serve on the same committee, or
Yeah, maybe he's a member. Yes.
okay, so cool. Good. Yeah. So definitely, we are really honored to have Professor Zhou here today. So please join me warmly welcoming Professor Zhou for.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for coming. I'm very glad to be here. Actually, last time I came to Irvine was 2008, 15 years back. And it's so glad to be on this very beautiful campus. And I thought it will be a sunny Southern California Friday, although it's a little foggy outside. Anyway, so as Professor Jim already introduced, my name is Bo Zhou. I'm associate professor. I'm currently also visiting faculty at Berkeley. The topic I'm going to present today is dynamic on-demand crowd shipping using constraint and heuristics embedded double-threading DPO network. In the past few years, my research group also started using some artificial intelligence, machine learning techniques to in the transportation context. And as Professor Jin said, one of my main research areas is freight transportation. I'm trying to see some of the very sophisticated, traditionally sophisticated models, whether we can leverage the power of machine learning to come up with some more efficient ways to computing to improve the system performance. Here, the system we are looking at is a crowd shipping system. So it's not working this year.
Yeah, it's not turned on.
Oh, it's not turned on. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay, good, good, thank you. All right. So, thank you. So, yeah, this research was founded, by National Science Foundation, a project that we just finished a couple years ago. And we have a couple of papers published. I would like to acknowledge the support of the contributions of my collaborators, my current PhD student, Parviz Farazi, and Dr. Teja Jurabandula, who is from the IDS, the Information Decision Sciences Department at UIC, and my former PhD student, Tanvir Ahmed, who is now working also on routing problems, but for private aviation in New York City. So what?
Well, I think if you click on more up there, you can hide that.
I can hide that. Okay. Right, this is better. So. Lost focus. Oh, okay. So, what is crowdshipping? Actually, crowdshipping has been around for some years. Have another next figure show that. But in this talk, we consider a specific type of crowdshipping, which is for kind of a citywide delivery that can be picked up and delivered by individuals, just ordinary individuals, which we term crowdsources, who use their limited time and they can walk, bike, or drive to perform the deliveries. This is a figure that was drawn from a French website. So I thought that maybe Jean Daniel knows some words, but crowdshipping has been around, I think, since 7-8 years ago. At that time, lots of companies, startups, and as well as the big companies got into this business. And here are different types of crowdshipping for moving packages internationally or even cities, within the cities, or even for kind of a storage and package transfer or relay, can all use crowdshipping. And these days, those are big delivery service providers such as Amazon, Uber Eats, Instacart, Postmates, DoorDash. They all use heavily crowdsourced people to perform their deliveries. You may wonder why people are thinking of crowdshipping. There are many challenges and many new situations for deliveries, especially to home customers. First of all, there's a rapid growth of online shopping or e-commerce. The share of e-commerce in total retail sales increased from 4.2% in 2010 to 16.1% in 2022. And food delivery revenue, a very specific sector, reached 22.1 billion in 2019 and is projected to reach $32 billion by 2024. The trend has been further accelerated by the pandemic. We know that now we are all used to working from home, getting everything online. Then the delivery becomes a big question and challenge.
So
Yes.
so by food delivery, the revenue of the delivered food itself, or
I think it's food delivery, the delivery itself, not the food.
or not just delivery.
It's a delivery, yeah,
Oh,
not the food.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here the food include grocery or the restaurant.
No, I think it's just restaurants.
Or just restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
In addition to this trend, there's a time-sensitive nature of deliveries. Now that imposes increasing financial pressure or cost pressure to service providers. They want to keep their delivery shipping costs low while guaranteeing delivery in just 1 to 2 hours time frame. On the traffic side, there's increasing delivery vehicle traffic. These cause negative consequences in urban environments such as congestion due to double parking, air pollution. These vehicles are often heavy-duty vehicles. The roads wear and tear will be more because these delivery vehicles are heavier, and the shortage of parking for those delivery vehicles. So the delivery business has been thinking of innovative ways to do delivery. And that's why we consider the crowd shipping has come up as an attractive option. The problem we consider here is kind of a spatially distributed problem. For the request, we consider that the pickup and delivery locations are spatially distributed, and they also dynamically arrive in crowd shipping system. A system we can consider the platform, and we have constant arrivals of requests. There's a common, this is quite common for deliveries from restaurants, grocery stores, or retail shops, and even for some document deliveries between office locations. A request is another time window between the earliest pickup time and the latest delivery time. For the crowdsources, those ordinary people who are interested in doing delivery, they are also spatially distributed. They may start from their home, and they each have a certain amount of available time dedicated to crowd shipping. They dynamically arrive and they spend the next 2 or 3 hours and then exit the system. This is a popular business model, and crowdsourcing also has a limited carrying capacity depending on what mode one uses. If one drives, then they can use the car trunk to load packages. If one bike, then just have a backpack. Once they are assigned a request, they are en route for delivery, then they will be paid by a fixed rate. For example, $15 per hour or $15 per hour. The problem we study is how can a delivery service provider periodically assign requests to crowdsources to minimize shipping costs while respecting certain constraints such as crowdsourcing carrying capacity, limited the time for crowdsources, and the pickup and delivery time of requests. Of course, it can happen that some requests will not be able to assign to any crowdsources. Maybe the time window is too tight, or maybe there's not enough crowdsources. In that case, requests will be assigned to backup vehicles, which will be more expensive to operate. We consider an operation day divided into a number of periods of equal length, and this assignment of requests to crowdsources is performed periodically at the beginning of each period, which we also call episodes. Then each assignment will consider the new information since the last assignment. For example, on the request side, we'll consider the new arrivals or requests from the previous assignment until now, and the request that has been left unassigned since the previous assignment. On the crowdsourcing side, we'll consider the newly arriving crowdsources between the previous assignments and the current assignment. And we'll consider the crowdsources who were assigned and having en route since the previous assignment. There are also crowdsources who were en route at previous assignment but now become idle, available. And yes.
So do you imagine if there's one entity doing this, like Uber Eats, or do you have a bunch of different crowdsourcing providers?
We consider like one platform, one provider, but of course, in practice, there could be multiple ones in competition. So that's kind of an extension. We really kind of want to consider the competition dynamics, and that's actually an extended direction for the current research.
But so who's making the delivery request? Is it
It's a customer.
consumer?
Yeah, consumers. The consumers, they click online and they place the order. Yeah.
Right.
Right. So then we have also these crowdsources who have been idle since last assignment. They were not assigned anything and still available at the next assignment. So the assignment will involve inserting the unassigned requests to the existing routes or creating new routes of crowdsources, and we want to adjust the routing of the assigned requests since new requests have been added to improve the routing efficiency. Yes.
Does the crowdsources have a route for themselves, like an FTP path?
They don't. So we consider these crowdsources ordinary people. Like say, I'm available from 10 a.m. on Saturday till 12 p.m. on Saturday. So on this day, I'm available. Whatever the platform tells me to do, I will do that. But after 12 p.m., I'll exit
So what I'm thinking of, the number of players. Session.
Yeah.
It looks like there's a customer, the consumers, and also there are restaurants,
Yes.
right? They are placing orders through the restaurants. So in this sense, I mean, then there's a platform.
Yes.
To be honest, I actually, I don't know. I mean, do consumers directly place orders through like a Uber Eats or
Through the platform, yeah,
or through the restaurant, or does it have?
through the platform, yeah.
Or not to place the order to the restaurant, and then the restaurant contact the platform.
I think
That
now the
might
business
possible.
model is more like the platform, the restaurants register on the platform.
Oh,
And the
that's-
customer order things through the platform, order things from a specific restaurants from the platform.
Oh, so
Yeah,
that's.
yeah. At least for delivery service, purpose.
So does this generalize to, I mean, the only current example of this is food delivery, right?
For delivery.
There's no other example of that's like Uber Eats for delivering other.
So
things.
there's, yeah, I think for food delivery, it's like a more generic, but for grocery delivery, yeah, there's also a platform, maybe for a specific.
They have
grocery
the
chain.
app where you could order almost anything. Like you could go online and you'd be like, I want toothpaste converted. And someone.
Yeah,
if they
Target.
don't have money, they'll go do your shopping, anything you wanna buy.
Yes.
And I do believe, sorry, and I do believe now in China, they have the app where if you want to deliver a document, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
just tell the platform will assign somebody. So if you
Yeah.
take the center of the document as a restaurant, then it's the same way as. a
Yes,
restaurant.
yeah, I also mentioned document delivery. Yeah. Uh-huh. How do you define as soon as possible? Right? We can be just waiting today, and that's a very, very large time window, still time window. Right? It can be considered, it's just a larger time window, right? More relaxed problem. Okay, so here's some review of the literature. There's quite a few studies looking at crowd shipping, especially on-demand crowd shipping, but none of them has considered using reinforcement learning to do this. There is also literature on vehicle routing, urban parcel delivery, using deep reinforcement learning, but the mainly so far have been dealing with the static problems. We do not consider the dynamics of vehicles and the heterogeneity of vehicles. From a methodological perspective, they consider this kind of encoder-decoder architecture to generate the routing sequences one at a time. What we propose here is we certainly take a different approach. We simultaneously cope with kind of improvement or optimization of the routing of multiple routes all at the same time. So here is a table, the highlighted of the literature as well as our work. The highlighted ones are the two relevant works to the presentation. So as we see, this table mainly describes the highlights the dynamics our study cover in terms of the request and also the vehicles, as well as the heterogeneity of vehicles in terms of their capacity and the time availability, which is not often considered in vehicle route. So the novelty of the work, we propose approach to this dynamic on-demand crowd shipping in deep reinforcement learning, but we go beyond the simple adoption of deep reinforcement learning with three contributions. First, we designed abstracted heuristics-embedded action space. We know vehicle routing problem is a combinatorial problem, so we cannot enumerate all the possible actions. So we have to keep the problem tractable. And what we do is we kind of abstract the action space and then hybridize it with the heuristics, which will guide the specific action to take once the DRL agents recommend the specific action type. Then we also design some strategies to handle the constraints. We have the time constraints, particularly, and how we handle the constraints, we propose some strategies here. We have tested the double embedding structures in DRL and see what's the benefit of using these structures. In the rest of the talk, I'll talk about the states representation, the design of the action states, specification of rewards. These are the kind of a premise for using DRL, and then how DRL agent is trained. Then I'll describe our proposed constraint handling strategies. I'll present some results from our numerical experiments, and finally conclude. For a state of the system, which is a crowd shipping system, it consists of the state of the shipping request and the state of the crowd sources. So at any given time, the state of this environment will be described by two tuple. One part is the request, and the other part is the crowd sources. The shipping request state is represented by the information on the location for pickup, for delivery, the earliest pickup time, the latest delivery time of all the requests, and also an indicator on whether a request has been assigned or not. For those unassigned requests, we further consider the urgency for assignment. So we consider both micro level urgency and the macro level urgency. The micro level urgency will be described by the slack time of a request. Slack time here is defined as the difference between the latest delivery time and earliest pickup time minus the delivery direct shipping time of the request. And the macro level urgencies basically describes how much time left for the current assignment. Because when we take an action, it takes one time step, and each assignment will take a number of actions. As we take more actions, there's less time that remains. So then this macro level urgency shows how urgent we need to perform the assignment. On the crowdsourcing side,
So
yes.
for that shipping time and direct shipping time, I mean, how do you calculate? Is this a congestion considered?
No, we don't consider congestion.
Or just distance space?
Yeah, just distance space for the congestion, for the shipping time. Yeah. Then for the crowdsources, the states, their states are described as their locations, the current location, the available time, their remaining available time, remaining carrying capacity of the crowdsources. And for crowdsources who have already been assigned some requests, we also include the sequence of the nodes for pickup and delivery to visit in the current routing sequence as part of the state. As I said, there are many actions because it's a routing problem. We want to preserve the tractability. What we do here is we abstract action states into 8 types. Basically, when we talk about an action type, they should be one of the 8 types. We consider 1 insertion action type, 2 intra-route move types, 2 inter-route move types, and 2 exchange move types, and finally, do nothing can be part of the actions. The idea is that we let the DRO agents learn from the data, and the DRO agent will recommend once trained action type given the state of the environment. Once the action type is recommended, then we will let the specific local search heuristics under the action type to direct the specific routing action to take. So I'm going to talk briefly about each of the action types for insertion. We look among the unassigned requests, which one has the smallest slack time. Then we select crowdsources, who is the closest to that selected request, and also has available time and the carrying capacity to accommodate this request. When we add a request to the end of that crowdsourcing route, then we shuffle the nodes on the route to see if we can reduce the cost of this routing sequence. For intra-route moves, we consider 2 types of moves. First is a flexibility-based intra-route move. We select a route with the greatest remaining available time and then shuffle the nodes on the route to see if we can reduce cost. The rationale for considering the route with the greatest remaining available time is that there is a high flexibility in moving requests around because it has a large remaining time to explore whether there's a cost reducing possibility. There's another type of intra-route move, which is potential based. We select a route with the smallest remaining available time, which means that this route is very compact. So there's a high potential to reduce routing costs. Then once the route is chosen, we also shuffle nodes around to see if we can further reduce cost. For inter-route moves, we consider first request-centric inter-route move. We select an assigned request with the largest occupation time, which is the time difference between delivery and the pickup. Then we remove the request from the route and then insert the request to a different route following the insertion heuristic. The rationale here is that if a request has a very large occupation time, you have the question. Multiple at the same time. So there is at each assignment we call episode. You can take a number of actions to improve routes, including create a new route. But for these actions, these heuristics for these action types, it's about dealing with one or just a few requests at a given time step of action. We will take a number of actions.
For grouping the costs that can be possible to put together, you have some consideration. Maybe use the cost of document at the same time to go through, or it's just the base, but the active based only on one also.
No, it's so it's certainly it's not grouping. We consider a number of requests. So these requests we organize them, assigning them to processes. So a process can carry multiple requests.
So you don't have to think about constraint.
There is physical constraint. There is a carrying capacity constraint of processes. As I said, if you drive, you use your trunk, and which has a limited capacity. If you bike, you carry a backpack.
Yeah, actually, I have a question about your capacity assumption. So this question and also something because I also do crowdsourcing delivery.
Okay.
So I think the major question they ask me is for this kind of crowdsourcing delivery, the major problem is not on the capacity, it's on the time.
Yeah.
So basically, in whatever review they ask me to not consider capacity, but to use the time as a limit, especially the idle time left for each carrier or crowdsourcing as a constraint for limiting the number of packages or pickups.
Okay. Well, we consider both, but I think it depends on what mode you use. If it's car, maybe your trunk is big enough that load a lot of package. But if you just if you bike, if you walk, even in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. So you also have to walk or bike. In
general, but in our numerical, I think we consider bike, but in general, this model can be bike. Then we also consider the route-centric inter-route move. We select a route with the largest number of requests, and then we select the request on the route with the largest occupation time, and then we perform the request-centric inter-route move. The rationale for focusing on route with the largest number of requests is that we believe this route will be most packed, and there's a lot of potential to make the route less packed. Then there's the exchange moves. Basically, we just want to pick one request from a route and pick another request from a different route and exchange their positions in the two routes and make adjustment on the route to see if we can reduce the cost. And there are two ways. Basically, it says we pick two routes and do the exchange. And three-way is we pick three routes and make exchange among the three routes. So I'm not going to the details. That's the general idea. We also need to specify the rewards. An intuitive way to specify reward is to use just the cost change. If you adjust a route or if you create a new route, whether the cost will increase, decrease, or remain the same. But here we use indicator-based rewards. So it's kind of taking value 1, 0, or -1, depending on whether the cost is increasing, decreasing, or remaining constant. The reason why we use the indicator-based reward is that it can help mitigate action bias towards choosing insertion. It is because insertion is about changing the request status from unassigned to assigned, which will lead to a large cost reduction. Whereas neighborhood moves is about more incremental improvement of routing sequences. So if we just use absolute value for the cost change, then the agent will just keep choosing insertion as the action. And we actually compared the performance of the trained agents and found that using this indicator-based reward will lead to a better trained agent than using the absolute value of based agents. Now, for the agent training, the basic idea is to train an agent using multiple days of data. As just recall, each day involves multiple periodic assignments, and each assignment is corresponds to an episode. And each episode, the DRL agents will take a number of actions which associate with a specific time step to assign requests to crowd sources and construct routes. At each time step, we adopt an ipsum greedy strategy in the beginning. So we will let the agent explore more. In other words, they can action type random with a probability ipsum, or we can exploit what the agent has learned, or take the best action type based on the learned experience. Of course, as time goes by, the agent will learn more. So we want more exploitation than exploration. So the ipsum value will decrease over time. And once an action type is chosen, then the specific local search heuristics will be used to guide the concrete action to follow. At a given time step, a deep neural network is trained using a mini batch sample randomly selected from a replay memory. The replay memory is a set of agents' experiences during training. Experience is associated with taking an action and observing the state transition and getting a reward. The advantage using replay memory is that the samples are randomly selected. The correlation between samples will be less than learning from the latest samples or consecutive samples, and this enhances the learning efficiency. And each experience can be learned, can be used multiple times for the deep neural network weight updates, and this allows for greater data efficiency. Because these samples are randomly selected, there is also a behavioral distribution that is averaged over many previous states, and this helps smooth out the learning and avoids oscillation or divergence in the DNN parameters. So for each selected experience, the states is used as inputs for DNN to generate the state action value or the Q value. And the Q value is compared with the target's optimal Q value. That's what we want to find out, which gives the optimum, the maximum expected return, which also satisfies the Bellman optimality equation. And the comparison is performed using a loss function. But the problem here is we don't know the target optimal Q value. That's what we want to find out. So what we have to do is to use something to approximate. One way to approximate this is to use a current state value, state's action value, based on the current, the online parameter theta. And this leads to the last expression for the loss function. And then the gradient of the loss function is used to update the parameter data by Adam optimizer. But in this way, there's a drawback because when theta gets updated, both the Q value and the target Q value get updated, and the direction of the updates for the two Q values are the same. Then there's a correlation between two Q values, and this can lead to possible oscillation or divergence for the policy during training. So the way to mitigate this issue is to have a target network, which is a parallel network of the original DQ network. And the target network will preserve the parameter of the DQ network in a way that it will get the parameter updates less frequently every delta time step, whereas the original DQ network parameter theta gets updated every time step. So as you can see here, we have the approximation of the target Q value, and here it's based on the parameter specific for the target network. We also add the double structure and the gradient structure here to the DeepQ network. The double structure is to separate the selection of action and the evaluation of an action, which will help mitigate the policy overestimation. So here, when we calculate the target Q value, the action evaluation is based on the target Q network, whereas a selection of the optimal action will be based on the online Q network. So here, see the first red box, we use theta prime, which is the target network parameters, whereas for the second red box, we use theta, which is from the online Q network. The dwelling structure is another way to more frequently update the state value function. So we can see that after the convolutional layers in the DeepQ network, the model layers are branched into two streams. The first string will correspond to the value function, which estimates the value of a given state. The second string corresponds to an advantage network, which computes the value of an advantage of taking a particular action over the average or the base value of being in the current state. So those are the basic idea of our training of the DRL agents. But the training itself does not cope with the constraints, right? And just recall that we have two time-related part constraints. One is the latest request delivery time, and other is the available time window of these crowd sources. We propose some strategies here, three strategies. First is called feasibility enforced local search, then the multiple schedules with different penalties. And the third one is called exponential penalty. For the first one, basically, we always want to have a feasible solution. Solution after each action taken is supposed to be feasible. If the best found solution is not feasible, then we move on to look at the second best solution, and so on until we find the feasible. For the second strategy, we seek multiple solutions in parallel, and each solution will be associated with a different penalty level if some constraints are violated. We also seek a solution from the feasibility enforced local search as a backup. At the end of an episode, then we choose the best solution from the above solutions that is least cost and also feasible. For the third strategy, we seek the best solution with a time-varying penalty. The penalty exponentially increases over the time steps. The penalty will be small, which will allow the search to go beyond the feasible region, so to learn a little bit more of the search space. Near the end, the penalty will increase to be very large, which will help push the search back into the feasible region. So the rationale for this is that by exploring a large network, large space beyond what is feasible, the DRL agent gains broader knowledge, which helps find a better feasible solution at the end of an episode. Okay, so now we consider this DRL training with our specific characterization of the states and the embedments of the local heuristics into the action taking process and the constraints handling strategies. We implemented in a network. Unfortunately, we don't have the real world data, so we use simulated data. We consider a surface area of a kind of medium-sized city, 7 kilometers by 7 kilometers, with a 250-meter grid size. And the period is in a day. We consider 60 assignments. So the length of time between two assignments is 10 minutes. And the cross sources, when they are being assigned to request, will be paid at $15 per hour, which is consistent with the practice. We also generate crowdsources from some uniform distribution, for now, uniform distribution, about when they arrive, their available time, their carrying capacity. Similarly, we randomly generate requests in terms of their arrival and the earliest pickup time and the latest arrival time. At an aggregate level, the problem size we consider is comparable for food delivery in real-world cities of similar size, like Alexandria in Virginia, Yonkers in New York, Sunnyvale in California, and Providence in Rhode Island. So those medium-sized cities. We trained different agents. First of all, we compared the agents trained using different constraint handling strategies. And to test trained agents, we generated 30-day instances to test the performance. And here the graph shows the total shipping cost across the 30-day instances. And we found that the third strategy, exponential penalty strategy with the DRL agent, outperforms the other two by 6% and 2% in average. Of course, there are some variations. We also compare the double dueling DQM with the DQM and the double DQM. So the same 30-day instances are used for the comparison. On that, with the double and the dueling structures, they actually help with the performance. Double dueling DQM outperforms DQM by 19% and outperforms double DQM by 3%. That's an average in performance. We consider comparing the DQM, the DRL train DRL agent with some heuristic algorithms. Here we consider some intuitive ones, also fast to perform insertion, descent, and simulated aligning. Each algorithm is performed also periodically every 10 minutes. And it's a rolling horizon base. Each time when performing assignment, we consider requests ready for pickup, as well as requests that have arrived with the earliest pickup time up to 15 minutes in the future. So what we found here, we have 30 instances and have a different color bars showing the results for different approaches. The purple ones are from the DRL. So the DRL shipping cost is 37%, 26%, and 24% lower than using insertion, descent, and simulated aligning approach. Then we submit a paper, and the reviewer said you should consider the non-stationary demand. That's what we did here. So we consider the peaks during noon and evening times. That's when most of the food delivery orders are placed. And we experience the different levels of demand. For each level, we have a randomly generated instances. So we test 25 instances in total. What we found is that the results are pretty robust. Again, the double dueling DQN performs 42%, 25%, 22% better in terms of cost reduction compared to insertion, descent, and simulated aligning. And these percentage reduction numbers are quite similar to the stationary demand results. In the end, we also want to know how far away our DRL agent based results are from the optimal solution. So we formulate a crowdshipping problem as a mixed integer linear programming model and assume that request and crowdsource information is known in a day in advance. So it's really a global optimization. We employ to formulate this model, we employ a Hamiltonian tour-based formulation, which is from a literally existing study by Lu and Desuki in 2004. The Hamiltonian, we're not going to talk a lot about the model specification, but the Hamiltonian tour basically consists of consecutive subtours, and the subtour corresponds to a routing sequence of one crowdsourcing. The subtours have been limited by the origin nodes of crowdsources. In other words, the end node of a crowdsourcing route is a node right before the starting or the origin node of the next crowdsourcing. We know that this is a combinatorial problem, NP hard, and it's not possible to use a solver to solve large size problems. So what we tried is we tried several small size problems, try to solve it by simplex. These problem sizes have number of processes between 2 and 3, really small, number of requests between 4 and 7. We consider 2 assignment periods. The table here shows the computation time and the result in shipping cost using MIOP and DRL and optimality gap. Just imagine that. Just recall that for DRL, we each episode we just use the current information to make decisions on what action to take. So whereas for MILP, we assume that all the information is known in advance. But we can see in terms of the optimality gap, it's actually pretty small, below mostly all below 10%, and I think the majority of them are around or below 5%. Computation time, you can see the computation I'm using MILP simplex increases exponentially even for a fairly small size problem. But DRL agent once trained, it takes just a matter of seconds to solve a problem. Okay, so in this work, we propose a DRL-based approach to address a dynamic on-demand crowdshipping problem. The novelties here are we design a kind of an abstracted action space and try to hybridize it with a heuristics, so that the space, the action space is trackable and it's also efficient to perform the training and execution. We conceived multiple strategies for to tackle hard constraint in the DRL training, and we incorporated double and dueling structures to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of training. And this is certainly not the end of the research. We propose some future extensions. First of all, we have a real-world data. We could use them for training and further validating the approach. There could be the relocation issue because of the imbalance in terms of location and time between where the demand is, where the demand is generated and where the demand is headed to. So this relocation or repositioning of idle processes could be a way to further make the system more responsive and mitigate the spatial temporal imbalance of supply and demand. Another way to manage supply and demand is to have pricing, considering that processes are also elastic. If you offer a higher pay rate, then you may be able to attract more people to get into the crowdshipping system. And in the time of a low demand, then you may just offer low pay rate, so you have a more balanced supply of processes and the demand for request. So that's there are some papers. I think the work is mainly based on the first paper. The second paper was some work that laid some methodological foundations for the work. And thank you for your attention. And I'll be happy to answer questions. Do you have other questions? Yes. Okay, maybe you can.
Yeah. So my question is, in your dynamic routing problem, what's your overall objective function? Is that minimize the routing, minimize the total distance, or minimize the total
the cost, minimizing the cost?
But if it's minimize the cost, so because you seem to pay the carrier an hourly rate.
Yeah.
So basically the distance cost is internalized by the carrier itself, because they within this 1 hour, I got paid $15.
Yeah.
10 packages, I deliver $15. I deliver 20 packages, it's still $15.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's will that be better if I give a distance related incentive to the carriers? Like if you travel for 10 miles, you pay a 10 mile. It's like a fixed hourly rate plus a distance related reward to the carrier. Like I travel 10 miles, I get $5 extra. If I travel 20 miles, I get another $5 extra.
So there is a base pay.
Yeah, but I know if So the problem is obviously if you decide to pay design the incentive scheme like distance related, then get back to the formulation, you have to consider the specific distance that a carrier is traveling, which will make the action space maybe larger, or even the routing of the carrier more complex. So how do you suggest a solution to this, or what's your opinion on considering the cost while the balancing the complexity in solving the specific routing of the carrier?
That's a good question. We do consider that we consider fixed pay rate, and that follows the search on the Amazon Flex platform. That's what we do. Yeah. And we do consider the specific routing, and so if you travel for five miles, and maybe 5 miles, you can deliver 5 packages or 10 packages, and we here we don't consider congestion. So basically, distance is equivalent to time. So then 5 miles can deliver 10 packages, and the average cost per package for delivery will be low. Right? So in essence, we do consider the distance, it's specific routing sequence, but we do not consider this kind of distance-based pay plus some base pay. I'm not sure that will be better from the delivery service provider, or and of course, this depends on. This can involve the demand, the supply of processes. How will they respond? Right? They will be more attractive to them or less attractive. Then it's a matter of how many processes will end up becoming available. Yes.
So thinking about this in the restaurant context, I assume that your solutions have one driver visiting multiple restaurants,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
then making the delivery.
Yes.
Is that the way Uber Eats works in practice?
I think, yeah, as long as the time window is respected, yes, you can do that. You can see some delivery guy come to you and give you the package.
So I don't never use Uber Eats, although other members of my family use it a lot. But anyway, you know, if I sometimes order pizza for delivery from Domino's.
Yeah.
Okay, and depending on how many stops the guy made, that determines on the way to my house, that determines whether the pizza is cold or hot.
Yeah.
So what if you put that consideration in your model, that the person at the delivery point doesn't want a long trip chain to his house?
But the customer only cares whether the pizza is hot or not.
Yeah, right, but I mean, but that's not in your model, I bet.
There's a time window, right? So after the order is placed, it needs to be delivered within, say, 1 hour.
All right.
Yeah, so that's kind of the.
But then again, but you can imagine putting this type of thing in your model where the customer has a preference for shorter trip chains on the way to his house.
The
So
customer.
it's not a fixed delivery.
Yeah.
But
It could, yeah. So we can certainly incorporate that, so the customer can see the routing. The customer say, I want direct delivery, then
right.
I think that makes the problem even simpler if it's direct delivery.
Or maybe just a short trip chain.
Yeah. You can have at most two
Right.
two orders. That's probably doable.
Yeah.
I think here we have a time constraint.
Right. But anyway, the customer doesn't figure into this problem. It's pure cost, right?
Yeah, it's pure cost. Yeah, and the time constraint.
For comments to the question by the listener. So you actually can pay a little extra to Uber Eats to ask them to deliver your food before all the others.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so they actually pick up. So they try to do a series of pickup, then do a series of delivery. But if you pay $10 extra, you say deliver it to me.
What if everybody's paying $10?
That's a really good question. When I was paying the $10, I was thinking the same time. What if they treated me this like everybody that maybe.
Yeah.
It is a bidding problem.
Yeah, it's a different problem for that. Yeah, that would be interesting to.
Professor, I have a
Yes.
question about the Q function.
Yeah.
So the target Q function is unknown.
Is unknown is what we want to find out.
Oh, then how did you know you actually find it out?
So you keep, you use a loss function, right? Then if the loss becomes very small, then you can always the loss function, right? So you want to minimize the loss. And then when the loss becomes stable for some period during a training, and can not cannot further improve, and that's
Professor, so the loss function is the current iteration and the previous iteration.
no. It's so ideally the loss function is a comparison here between your current skill value and the target skill value, right? Target outcome, but we don't know the target outcome. So that's why we created a separate network for the target network, and which is updated less frequent. And so in other words, it's kind of an iterative process. When the improvements or when the difference becomes less and less, then that's what we can do, right? And cannot do further improvement.
Can we understand we use the target network to approximate the target Q value?
Yeah, that's what we do here.
And then we just see if there's no much.
Yeah, not much updates. Yeah, that's the basic idea.
Professor, I have a specific question on page 37.
37.
Yeah, 37. We will see the actually 3C6R and the deep reinforcement learning CPU time is 1.5.
Yeah,
When
so it's not.
goes to 3C7R, it decrease.
Yeah,
So
I think
what-
it's
why is that?
it's experimental. Yeah,
It's stochastic.
yeah, we did a stochasticity here.
Or comparable, 1 second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's, you see, it does not increase linearly.
So then what might be the major computational or in the DRL?
It's training.
The
Training takes time. Yeah, training takes multiple hours. Yeah, so this is after it's trained, so it solves the problem, solves a new problem. That's the amount of time. Single what? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it could be multiple rounds to see whether it's actually a function of it increases monotonically the size. But I think the key point here is that it remains pretty much constant around a matter of seconds, right? But in that time scale, I don't think it matters. 1 second.
Yeah, maybe can I ask one question?
Uh-huh.
I see this service is good for, the restaurant, for the platform, for the customers. But you mentioned earlier, this might, induce a lot more trips. I don't know,
Yeah.
some people might argue that this will replace some shopping, some
Yeah.
our own trips, right?
Yes.
So I'm wondering if there's a kind of study on the impacts of this freight delivery on the overall congestion in the city, because there have been studies showing that Uber and the Lyft, they
Yeah.
actually get the city
City
more
more
congested, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just that, when we scale this up, there might be this same issue or when it comes to study.
Yeah, I think it's so it'll be kind of a new research direction, right? You compare like everyone shopping going to stores for shopping versus portion of people shopping online, right?
Yeah.
And then the portion of people going shopping online, then the delivery vehicles, they deliver, and then currently they just double park. That will cause congestion. And what's the congestion effect? Yeah, we actually I have a collaboration paper with Mark Hansen and students. I'm looking at how to select the different delivery modes, drones, bikes, and trucks, in the mid, to optimize the citywide congestion using.
Citywide congestion.
Yeah, using NFP.
And also related question that I suspect actually I've seen some, I haven't used this, but I see a lot of Tesla drivers, they are, they are very sensitive to this concept. They tend to drive more of the electric vehicles, but they are not paying their gas tax. But they are using the roads a lot more,
Yeah.
and then it looks like there's should be charge them based on road use, things like that, right? Otherwise, it's kind of not fair that the private electric vehicle will not take less tax, but using the road so much more. and
Yeah.
making money. I mean, that's good, definitely, they are doing, good service to the whole community, but
Yeah.
the burden might not be on the.
Yeah, I
So what do
think
you think?
for it's as more and more people use electric cars, I
Mhm.
think it's more about the infrastructure.
Yes.
The loads or the strain on infrastructure for the kind of consumption of fossil fuels.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I think the congestion is a very important problem from delivery. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Professor, a quick question. Yeah. Currently, you didn't consider the activity pattern. For example, if I go to work and on my way to work, I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
drop
that's a
off-
difference. There are many types of crowd shipping. Yeah, mine is not. It's not like that. But yours is like ad hoc crowdsources.
Yeah,
Right?
i-
Yeah.
if you tackle that problem, how will you tackle that problem? Or would it be easier or?
I think the framework can be applied to that. I'm not sure it's easier. So you need to specify the origin and destination of each crowdsource and the limited time, how much they want to deviate from original schedule. I think the framework can fulfill that. Yeah.
Okay, no other question. Let's give Professor Zhou another round of applause.
Very enlightening.
And I'd like to thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
So, okay, you want to wrap it up?
Yes, well, just a quick reminder that today after the CEE seminar, we will have the opportunity to meet Professor Zhu here at ITS. If any of you.
The conference room, already online.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So it was just to let you know that it was kind of last minute schedule. So, and I want to also remember you all that next week we will have Professor Marie Alavaringo, who is now working at the Amazon Last Mile Science team
Oh, okay.
with us. So I think that it will be also a very interesting topic to
Okay.
talk about. Thank you very much, guys.
Again, I'm briefly and the words and the way to.
Yeah, thank you.
How we organize it and all of this.
Thank you, Lawrence. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Professor.
Okay,
You're
yeah,
so
it's very
happy
nice
to
of
have
you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And actually, I think that you are also. Oh, shall we?
Oh, yeah.
Great seeing you. Take
Yeah,
care.
thank you. Take care. Bye.
So I think that you're going to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like, because I had but you're free to come to a CET seminar, I think. And oh.
Yeah, Sue is joining us, so that's good. I will ask Sue to walk
Yeah,
to the seminar if he's interested or, but.
Yeah, I
the
can show it
conference
to you.
is also online. Yeah,
Everybody's still in here.
so you don't have to worry. Yeah, so,
Thank you very much.
yeah.
I already had something scheduled.
I know this, which week are you on this? I know it.
Oh, it's week 7. Yeah. So I will.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Please have your title page.
Yeah.
Title- Oh, I see. Okay. So,
Isn't Vicky joining us?
What?
Isn't Vicky joining us?
Well,
Yeah.
swap out somebody.
Yeah.
We'll focus on it.
Yeah.
The closer
And the taller should be on the side. Oh, really? Yeah.
the closer you can get, the better. Yeah, closer, can you like, maybe that
Yeah.
side come in somehow or?
Sure.
Megan, maybe.
Even-
your husband would be in the front. Don't worry, I'm not taking it yet, I'm just centering it, okay? And don't worry, hey, see, right, you
Yeah,
push the chair over a little bit. All right, we are professional. Okay, so I'm gonna start taking pictures. And I'll take a bunch, and then you all can see the one in which you and only you look best.
We want to stay. We want to stay.
Maybe you could join.
Okay, there you go. I'll
The-
switch down. to
where's
this.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah.
So actually, I wanted to show. Yeah, it's this is the title.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't.
Right forward.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Already, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
we can
It might
type a
take
little bit more. Yeah, we have yeah,
Oh,
we
sorry.
will let Professor decide. Whether
Mhm,
he-
of
but
course.
we
It's
have-
open to
we
everyone.
will,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's nice.
Wish I could have, but I can drive.
I can drive. I have my car here. Do you have your car here? Or, your car is in the parking?
It's actually like 2 minutes walk.
Oh, no,
I
that
have my car here, and
Yeah.
I'm turning it back into BMW, so it's free miles, so let's use my car.
yeah, I also drive my car. So,
Oh, you're gonna drive?
yeah,
too? Okay.
because I'm going back
Okay.
home
Okay.
after lunch. So let's drive with him.
Okay,
Okay.
So, do you want to join? You
I'll
are
take these
driving anyway,
guys.
right?
yes.
But can you join us?
I don't think so. today.
Okay, only
I'll
4
take
of
this
us.
guy. Are you coming?
I'll just stand here, I want to tell you something, but
You want
what are we talking about?
You might get lunch at this if you come, or
Yeah.
going to the CEO.
I'm gonna lunch out of you.
That's
Okay.
good. Bye, bye.
Okay,
So, who
you
are
can talk in a minute, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna grab my
Yeah, yeah,
stuff.
okay, sure.
Oh,
I'll
Shimon?
meet you right back here.
I think she's packing the boxes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this IPS has
She's,
Well, yeah.
I have a car, so it's okay.
Oh,
we have 2 cars.
Yeah, I
I
think
think if
that's
you
fine.
compare.
yeah.
Professor, what's your plan for the rest of the day?
No, I don't have other plans.
No, that's-
Tomorrow I'm going to see a friend of mine.
Yeah.
It's a weekend.
Going to the beach, even if it's not.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Foggy.
Yeah.
It'll burn out. At least.
Yeah.
You can run it, so maybe it'll burn out.
Yeah, usually after 1 PM or so, it starts getting, I don't know, like, it's my first time ever hearing. it.
Yeah.
Actually, only like this because this year has been an extreme amount of rain. So it's all the water.